are tracking developments in the trial of 3 Tacoma police officers in the death of Manuel Ellis. Thanks for joining us. I'm Christine Pay. Ellis died while being restrained by police in March of 2020. Officers Matthew Collins, Christopher Burbank, and Timothy Rankin are all facing charges in his death. King 5 is live streaming the entire trial from opening to closing statements. We take you now to the courtroom live.
I didn't know, but apparently
And he's not on our jury.
he's not. So
Okay.
I figured I needed to at least put that on the record so it didn't look like down the road that was not disclosed. Thank you, Judge.
Okay. And the witness is ready? Or witness?
Yes, Your Honor.
Great. So let's have the jury, Mrs. Winnie. Okay, welcome back, everyone. Please be seated. Mr. Lewis, please call your next witness.
Thank you, Your Honor. State calls Marcia Carter-Patterson.
Ms. Patterson, will you please come forward right about here? If you would. Thank you. And please raise your right hand to be sworn. Solemnly swear or affirm that your testimony in this cause will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Yes. Thank you very much. Please have a seat right here. Please state your name and please spell your name.
Marcia, Marcia, Carter, Carter, Patterson, Patterson.
Thank you. Mr. Liu.
Thank you. Good morning, Marcia.
Good morning.
I'm going to start by asking you a little bit about your background. Where do you currently live?
I live on the north end of Tacoma,
And Marcia, are you currently working or retired?
retired.
What did you do prior to retirement?
I was a guidance counselor for the Tacoma Public School District
How long did you do that for?
about 20 years.
What grades, what schools did you serve as a counselor?
Well, I worked quite a few of them, all grades, K through 12. I first worked at Foss High School, worked at Baker Middle School. I worked at Stadium for high school. I also worked at Lister Elementary and Edison Elementary.
And Marcia, do you have any children?
I do.
What are their names?
Matthew is the oldest. Manuel was the middle. And Francia Monet, we call her Monet, is my baby.
What are their ages?
Matthew is almost 40. Manny would have been 37. Monet is 32.
Marcia, I'm going to show you what's been previously admitted as State Exhibit 36.
Can you all turn on your mics, please?
Object to this. Mr. Ellis has been identified. It's clear that the state is trying to draw some sort of emotional appeal by leaving his picture up there.
It's really not an issue in dispute, is it?
It's not, the state simply wants to have Ms. Mother identify Mr. Ellis, and I, state does not need to leave a photo up. I think it's important for her to just identify.
It is cumulative, but I'll permit it. Go ahead.
And Marcia, is this a photo of Manuel?
Yes.
Thank you. Marcia, when did you raise your family?
I raised my family here in Tacoma.
And where did Manny attend school?
Manny attended, his last school was Tacoma Community College. He went to Evergreen State College in Olympia. He also attended Wilson High School. And he attended Mann Middle School. And I homeschooled him for, from the time he was around 6 up until middle school at Mann. And then he went to Lakewood Lutheran as a preschool kindergartner.
Oh, I mentioned Manny. Do you refer to him as Manny? I know you said his name is Manuel.
Manuel,
Manuel. And you refer to him as Manny?
yes.
Was Manny interested in music?
Manny loved music from the time he was 3 years old.
Tell me about that. What's the interest? What's he interested in?
Your Honor, objection, relevance.
We've had some of this already.
How would you describe Manny's relationship with Matt?
Manny was the glue of our family. He kept us all together when we were ready for holidays. Manny would always be begging his sister to cook because I passed the baton and said, "It's your turn now." So he was the glue that kept everybody together for all the family dinners and holidays. we always got together.
And was he close to Matthew or anything?
Manny loved his family. He was very, very close to all of us.
How would you describe your relationship with Manny?
Say that again.
How would you describe your relationship with Manny?
I was his madre. Manny loved me. That's what he called me, madre.
Is that his nickname for you?
That was his nickname for me.
What was his personality like?
Gregarious, full of fun.
Hold on a second. Mr. Liu, relevance?
I'll be long, Manny.
Sorry, okay.
Marcia, did Manny move into a clean and sober home in late 2019, early 2020?
Yes,
How often did you speak with him during that time?
several times a week.
Did you speak to Manny on March 3rd, 2020?
Yes, in fact, I was the last person that he talked to.
Do you recall what time you spoke to him on March 3rd, 2020?
It was 10 o'clock in the evening
And how do you remember that?
because I was lying down and I didn't answer the phone, and I called him back to say, hey, what's going on? And we talked.
You mentioned you talked to him on the phone. Were you able to see him? What type of call was it?
It was he didn't have an iPhone, so we would talk through Messenger. So it was like a messenger. I don't know I'm not computer savvy, but anyway, it was a face-to-face call.
So during that call, you could see him,
Yes,
and he could see you as well?
he could see me as well.
How did he look during the call?
He looked good. He looked happy.
I didn't hear that.
You may continue your answer. If you finish, that's fine, but you may continue.
Go ahead, Marcia. I think you're describing he was happy.
Yeah, he was happy. He was talking to me about wanting to just serve the Lord.
It is hearsay.
It's not being offered for the truth of the matter servant is going to state of mind.
Whose state of mind?
Mr. Ellis.
State of mind is not relevant.
I'll permit this overrule.
Go ahead, Marcia. So you say he was talking about,
He was talking about church. He had called me the whole week and asking me to come to church because there was a revival that was going on that week.
That's hearsay.
I'm going to permit this overrule.
There was a revival that was going on that week, and it had been for 4 days. And so he had invited me to come. And so that was the night that he said, Mom, I really want to give my life to the Lord. I'm tired of the lies. I'm tired of just being out here. I want to be here for my family. I want to just do the right thing. I want my life to change, and I want to give it to Jesus Christ. So I told him, I said, well, son, you know what? You're on the right path.
You can't object to hearsay.
Well, this is her statement, not his.
go ahead, Marcia.
Well, so this was the conversation that he and I had together. It was all about the Lord. And God is very important in our lives and has always been.
Marcia, what was Manny's mood during the call?
Manny was happy. He had called his sister, his brother, all of his friends.
Sorry.
He was happy about.
Object, yes.
This is beyond, it's
All
non-responsive.
the fine art, understood. Marcia, could you tell where Manny was during the call?
Manny was in his room, and between the room and the bathroom.
Okay, how did you know that?
I saw him. moving around with the phone, talking.
How long was your call with Manny?
Well, I thought it was about 15 minutes, but maybe 12 to 15 minutes, somewhere around there.
Was there anything unusual about Manny during your call with him?
Nothing unusual, just his happiness showed, that's for sure. That would have been the most, I guess, unusual part of it. He was very gregarious that night and just more at peace.
You indicated that was the last time you spoke to Manny,
Yes.
and so you didn't hear from him again after that call?
I did not hear from him anymore. That was the last time that I heard from him.
When was the next time you heard about Manny, or when did you learn of his death?
Well, I was told that there was a homicide with my son.
When did that occur?
That occurred the next day, later on that evening, or late afternoon, that there was a homicide.
And what happened after that?
It was the worst day of my life. I lost it hearing that because I didn't think that it was true.
I asked,
That's what she did next, basically. And she's telling her how she felt.
Marcia, were you at some point asked to go identify your son?
Never,
You did not.
never identified him, never saw him. We asked. I didn't know what to do.
There's no question.
Marcia, thank you.
You're welcome.
Gentlemen, your microphone. Okay. All right, you're talking to them, okay.
Ma'am, good morning. I'm very, very sorry about the loss of your son.
Thank you.
I'm just curious, who did you hear about his past? Who did you hear from?
It was the coroner's office.
They contacted you?
Yes.
Ma'am, that is all the questions I have. Thank you.
Pardon me.
Mr. Arbenz.
Marcia, good morning.
Morning.
You and I met before, interviews in the past, do you remember that?
I think so.
Just a few questions for you. First, you mentioned that you were a counselor for Tacoma Public Schools, correct? And I'm sorry, you have to say yes or no.
Yes.
Thank you. And one of your students that you mentored was Messiah Ford, is that correct?
That is correct.
All right, so then that's Officer Rankin's partner, correct?
Well, I don't know who Messiah Ford's partner was,
Okay,
but
you didn't know that, but
No.
Messiah was someone that you came in contact with through your job, correct?
yes.
And you actually helped him quite a bit in his personal life, is that fair to say?
That's fair to say.
Okay, thank you. Now, you and Manny, you guys were close, you FaceTimed quite a bit, is that right?
Yes.
And you talked on the phone?
Messenger.
Messenger, thank you. You talked on the phone quite a bit, right?
Saw him.
Some?
No, I saw him also.
Okay, you saw him a lot.
Yeah.
All right, great. And you also understand that he had a drug problem for 10 to 15 years before he passed away, correct?
I didn't understand that he had a drug problem.
Okay, saw him, you talked to him, you spoke with him, but you never knew that he had a meth addiction.
He never admitted it to me.
Okay. You didn't pick up any signs that he had a meth addiction?
No.
Now, he had this incident in 2019 where he was accused of robbing the A&W store. Is that right?
I'm not sure about that.
Okay, but you did go to court and see him in court, correct?
I went to court and saw him in court, and his face was bloated up. He was beat up
Right.
pretty bad.
And he told you that the employees of the A&W had beat him up.
Your Honor,
right?
I'm just checking. This is and it's also hearsay.
It's not being offered for the truth for him, Your Honor. And it also goes to Mr. Ellis's state of mind about his perception of that incident.
That is being, that is the truth, that is being offered for the truth of the matter, I suppose, in a sense. At least for the truth of whether he said it or not. I'll permit this, whether or not it had anything to do with A&W employees or not, I don't know. But I'll permit this because I think it goes to her understanding of Mr. Ellis's circumstances, and that's been asked about by the state.
Thank you. I can have the court reporter read back the question, but essentially the question was, Manny told you that he was beat up because the employees of the A&W had beat him up, correct?
He told me that he asked to use the phone. He didn't tell me who beat him up.
Okay. All right. Now, you understood Manny to have some mental health issues, right?
Manny had mental health issues. Yes, he did.
Okay. And at one point, you saw him exhibiting the effects of being paranoid, right?
I'm not going to say no.
Okay.
I'm going to say no. I didn't see him portray acts of paranoia.
Okay. Remember telling us in an interview about an incident where he came to your house and he believed that somebody was following him?
Your Honor, relevance.
Overruled.
Answer the question. I could have.
You could have told us that?
I could have.
Okay. You could have because that's something that
I
happened.
believe people are following me too.
Okay. I'm talking about Manny, and I'm talking about an interview that we had where you told all of us that there was an incident where Manny believed that someone was following him, and he came to your house and you made him a sandwich and tried to make him feel better. Do you remember that?
Probably did.
Okay. Now, after the A&W incident, you and your family, you had an intervention of sorts, right, to talk to Manny?
No,
Okay, so you never had any type of intervention?
no.
Okay, so you never had a family meeting where you talked to Manny about his drug problem?
We had a family meeting and we talked about his goals and what he wanted to do with his life.
Okay.
That's what our family, just one of our cooking times that we got together and we talked to Manny.
Okay, all right. And it was sometime after that that you moved into the clean and sober house, right?
My timeline, I'm sorry, I'm a little bit, just a tiny bit up there, so my timeline may not be as close as you want it to be. So I'm not sure about the time that we're talking about.
Okay. Well, Mr. Liu asked you earlier about early 2020, late 2019, early 2020, him moving into the clean and sober house. You remember that?
That's correct.
Okay. And that was when Manny started to really get into Jesus and church and the drums and all of that sort of thing, right?
Not the drums.
He already played the drums, but he became,
Manny was a musician from the time he was 3 years old.
I understand that, but he started playing drums for the church around that time.
He was playing drums at church from the time that he was probably around 6
Okay. But it
years
was
old.
in that early period of 2020 that he was telling you about how involved in the church he was and how he was committing his life to God, that sort of thing, right?
That was one of the times, yes. But
Okay.
we've always gone to church. Manny's always been committed to the Lord. They were raised in the church.
Understood. All right. He appeared to you and to the family to be doing better in that first part of 2020, right?
He was doing better.
Okay.
I heard from him a lot.
Okay. Fair enough. Now, in your last conversation, one of the things that you guys talked about was coronavirus. Right?
COVID,
COVID.
yes.
Manny actually said something like, this COVID is something, isn't it? Correct?
Yes, hey, Madre, this COVID is something.
So the COVID had really started about that time, right, in the U.S.?
He knew before I did.
Right? Okay. All right. Thank you. And you had no indication that he was under the influence when you guys talked on the phone, right? That last conversation.
I know he wasn't.
Okay.
He didn't talk to me.
Okay. Last question. Manny was left-handed, right?
Yes, he was a southpaw.
Southpaw. All right. Appreciate it. Thank you. Nothing further.
No questions.
Mr. Luke?
One quick follow-up, Jan. Marcia, that last question, when you were asked whether you noticed he was under the influence, and you said he didn't talk to me. You don't mean he didn't talk to you that night, did you?
No, he did. If Manny was under any kind of influence, if he was drinking or whatever, I didn't talk to Manny during that time. So I only talked to him when Manny was clean and sober. He didn't talk to me otherwise.
Okay. But just to be clear, you did speak to him that night.
I spoke to him that night. I was the last person that spoke to him. And the last words he uttered to me was, "Mom, remember how much I love you." That was the last words my son said to me.
Thank you, Marcia. No further questions.
Your Honor, thank you. No further questions.
Nothing further. Thank you.
And nothing further, thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Patterson. You are excused. Next witness, Mr. Luke.
State call State Welsh on. May go get witness.
Please. Yes, sir. Please come forward to right about here, and please raise your right hand to be sworn. Solemnly swear or affirm that your testimony in this cause will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Yes, Your Honor.
Thank you very much, sir. Have a seat right there. Please state your name and please spell your name.
David, middle initial C, last name Wells, W-E-L-L-S.
Give it just a moment for Mr. Wells to set up his computer.
Sure.
I'll need the HDMI cord. Oh, I see it.
Was that you, Mr. Arbenz?
Your Honor, I plugged in my external drive and put the trigger, so I apologize for that.
Just want to know what the source was. You ready?
Please let me know when you're ready, Mr. Wells.
Use this for just a second. Or if you just keep it. Be good.
All right, rise. Stand reset.
There's an issue, Your Honor. Court previously ordered that no witnesses be in the courtroom during the trial, and I see there's a witness in the courtroom, I would ask that person leave, please.
Is this somebody who's already testified?
It is, but it's someone who could be recalled.
No, we don't have any reason to believe Ms. Patterson's going to be recalled. And part of why we called her at this point was so that she could attend the trial.
If we're talking about Miss Patterson, I'm going to let her stay. I don't expect her to testify again.
Okay, no problem.
And I would think the same would be true of her daughter.
May I
Okay,
proceed,
are we
Your Honor?
ready?
Yes, thank you.
Proceed.
Mr. Wells, just for the record, you took a few minutes to kind of set up your computer. Can you just tell the jury why did you need to do that?
I needed to open the diagramming program that I used to create the scene diagram, as well as the software that allows the scans to be viewed.
Okay, does your computer have special capabilities, I guess, other than a regular computer, so to speak?
It's a gaming level computer so that it can process all the stuff in the diagramming program.
Great, thank you. So can you tell the jury, where are you employed, sir?
The Aces Inc.
And what is the Aces Inc.?
It's a business I started after I retired from the law enforcement world.
And what does the Aces Inc. do?
Traffic accident reconstruction and scene work.
And traffic accident reconstruction, you said, and what else?
Scene work, crime scene, accident scene.
All right. And how long have you had that company, sir?
I started it in '06 and incorporated in 2011.
And you said that previously you had been in law enforcement, is that right?
Yes.
Can you tell the jury where you worked in law enforcement?
I was with the King County Sheriff's Office for 33 years.
And can you give us a little bit more background with respect to the work that you did at the King County Sheriff's Office? When did you start there?
January 7th of 1980 was the first day of the training academy. Went through the training academy and then was assigned to the North Precinct in Kenmore at the time for the field training officer program. I remained there on patrol, working for 8 years at the patrol level. Then I went into detectives in the burglary larceny unit, working property crimes. In August of 1990, I was transferred into major investigations as part of the major accident response and reconstruction unit. And I remained there for my final 23 years.
And so when did you retire?
November 1st of 2013.
And can you tell the jury, it sounds like you had your company, the Aces, even before you retired from the sheriff's office?
Right, I was doing a few cases a year when I started under my name. And then once it continued to get busier and busier, then I incorporated, and then it got busy enough to where I retired.
All right, and you said that for much of your time from 1990, I think, until you retired in 2013, that you were a detective in major accident and reconstruction unit, is that right?
Yes.
Can you tell the jury what that unit did for the sheriff's office?
The primary function was to respond to critical injury and fatality traffic accident investigations, complete the on-scene investigations, and if you were the primary investigator, follow it all the way through till the conclusion whether charges were filed or not on a particular case. Secondary functions, starting in 1991, we were asked to respond to major crime scenes to do their measuring and diagramming for them.
And what is a major crime scene for the King County Sheriff's Office?
Typically it's a death investigation scene, whether it be a homicide or a suspicious circumstances, but we also responded to do bedrooms and houses on special assault, sexual assault cases.
All right, now can you tell us a little bit about your training on crime scene surveying or crime scene diagramming?
Along with the accident unit, we had to use diagramming software, and it evolves and changes over the years. I can't remember the name of the first program we started using in 1991. It was a more basic program as compared to this day and age, but we would hand measure initially and then put those measurements into the diagramming program. In 1993, we applied for and got a grant through the Washington State Traffic Commission to get a survey station, a total station. The total station was an electronic measuring device that used infrared supplemented lasers to measure individual points at a scene, and the belief was that it would speed up the scene work so that the roadways could be opened faster. But what we realized as we were working with those is that they were not only incredibly accurate, but we would be able to do other scenes with them as well. So we started taking the total station to the crime scene callouts and working on diagrams with that.
And you said that, or you made reference to the fact that kind of the crime scene diagramming has changed over the years. Can you just give the jury an idea of how it changed?
Well, initially, the high standard was the total station. This day and age, everyone has moved into the laser scanning. There are multiple different types of laser scanners or brands of laser scanners, which are the same thing as a total station, except that it uses light and a mirror that rotates to put out beams of light to every point that the light touches. So as a total station does one single point, measured point at a time, a laser station or a laser scanner can do tens of thousands and hundreds of thousands in minutes and develop a huge point cloud from that. The other thing everyone's using now are moving to as well are drones, UAVs, unmanned aerial vehicles, and there's software that goes with that that allows photography from the air to then be stitched together to create what they call an orthomosaic, which is a rendering of all those images put together. And now there's also a program that's become quite popular for hand scanning called Recon 3D, and it uses the LiDAR, which is light detection and ranging on your phone, your iPhone if you will, or a Surface Pad or whatever, to hand measure. You can hold it in your hand and you can do the same thing at a scene, and it develops the same type of point cloud that the laser scanner will.
And since you've had your company since 2006 and since you retired, have you used these scans that you're talking about, that, as opposed to the total station, in the work that you do?
Yeah, we still have two total stations that we use depending on the type of scene we're looking at, but we get the scan images and the orthomosaics from varying agencies on a routine basis that we incorporate into our diagramming software.
Now, we heard a brief mention with an earlier witness about a Faro scan. Can you just tell the jury, are you familiar with that term?
I am. Faro is simply a brand type of scanner. There's Trimble, there's Faro. Sokia, I think, has one out there, but in this case, a Faro X130 scanner was used by Tacoma PD.
And when you refer to this Faro as a brand, is that the same as the orthomosaic that you just referenced?
Right. Everyone kind of uses the terminology of, we did a Faro scan. So you use the Faro scanner, you develop your point cloud, it gets converted to the orthomosaic, which basically puts all the points in the point cloud together, and you can drop that orthomosaic into the diagramming software.
I want to go back to your time at King County. Did you have any formal training in collision investigation or related fields, developing crime scene diagramming?
Yeah, I had approximately 1,500 hours of formal training on traffic collision reconstruction and analysis, every phase of that: pedestrians, bikes, cars, trucks, commercial vehicles. At the end, we were going through light rail training because it was assumed something was going to happen there. The diagramming part, once we got our total station, we had Nikons, and Nikon sent out instructors to teach us how to use the survey station, level it up, make sure that it was set up correctly, calibrated, etc., to make sure those were accurate. When you buy, and then when you get another diagramming program or a new updated diagramming program, the company that provides that has training courses that you can take, and eventually we started with what's called crash zone, which turned into crime zone. They gave training on that. Faro now owns all of crash zone, crime zone. It's all incorporated into the Faro 3D diagramming program now.
And did you have any additional time that you spent in formal training related to just crime scene diagramming?
Yeah, we specifically talked with the crime lab, saw how they did it, the Washington State Crime Lab, how they measured their scenes, went through a substantial amount of literature on it, and then as part of the Washington State Training Commission, I became an instructor for the crime scene course that was held, I think, every quarter at the academy, and I was an instructor on both the diagramming portion and the photography portion.
So how long have you been mapping collisions or crime scenes?
Since 1990, when I started, we were doing it by hand, then measuring with tape measures, et cetera, and then with the total station from 1993 on, so 33, 34 years, I guess.
And do you have any idea how many accident or crime scenes that you've surveyed or reconstructed?
Yeah, it's been thousands.
And since you've been out in, since you retired, any idea how many crime scenes or accidents you've reconstructed since you've opened your own company?
Accidents, it's been over 3,500. Crime scenes, it's probably been, I don't know, 5 or 6.
And how many homicides or major crime scenes have you done the diagramming for?
I think I responded to close to 200 of those.
And you mentioned a minute ago that you were also an instructor, is that right, at the Criminal Justice Training Center in Burien, is that right?
Yes.
And during what period of time were you an instructor?
I want to say probably 1997 through my retirement date of 2013.
And did you, in addition to the training that you did at the CJTC, did you also do training anyplace else?
Well, we took training wherever we could get it, and any part of accident reconstruction always involves the portrayal of it as a diagram. Excuse me, so you could show the motion of the vehicles on a diagram potentially, and a great deal of that started evolving into animation, simulations, and 3D work. So once we had a diagramming program where you could do the 3D work, we started doing measurements so that we could produce 3D diagrams.
And have you testified as an expert before on crime scene surveying or establishing a crime scene
I have.
diagramming? When's the first time that you did that?
I don't know the specific date. Certainly over the 10 years ago that I retired, so probably 14 or 15 years ago, maybe 17.
And you said that since you've been in consulting privately, you said since about 2006, 2007, is that right?
Yes.
And what kinds of cases have you been handling once you went out into private practice?
The vast majority are traffic collisions, typically for insurance companies or plaintiff attorneys. We now do probably 20 plus or so criminal cases, vehicular homicides for the defense side. I've done a couple of consulting cases for prosecutors' offices on cases they wanted reviewed for vehicular homicide charges. And we do aerial, we get requests for aerial photos with our UAV.
And since you've been in private practice, you mentioned that you've worked, is it primarily for the defense?
Well, in terms of the civil cases, defense, it's about 80%, 20% for plaintiffs.
Okay. In civil cases,
That's
is that
correct,
right?
yeah.
All right. And can you tell the jury, were you hired as an expert witness in this case?
I was.
And what were you asked to do?
Create a diagram from the scan that Tacoma PD did so that we could show the relative distances within that scene.
Okay. And did you do anything in addition to that initial request?
Yeah, we went back to the scene twice. Once on October 15th, I think, of 21, to do some photography and some looking around there to make sure we knew what was there. And then on May 18th, I think, of 22, we went back. Actually, May 18th of 23. Nope, it was October, I think it was. We went back and one of my office staff used a
Sorry,
GoPro.
Your Honor, I didn't catch when they were back there.
Sorry. The first time I think was October 15th of 21 that we went just to get some photos and a look around. There was another time where we went down there and my office person, my tech person, Mason ORR, he took some GoPro photos along Ainsworth because we were requested to show Ainsworth going back further from the intersection with 96th. So he took a series of GoPro photos of Ainsworth from the west side of the roadway looking to the east so he could show what the fence lines and the hedges and shrubs looked like. He developed a point cloud in that using Pix 4D software, which is the software we use when we use our drone or just photos, and it does the same thing that the Faro software does in creating a point cloud. And he matched that point cloud up with the point cloud that Tacoma PD did of this scene, so he could simply show the road that was extended backwards. And I think he went back about 156 feet from the stop bar at Ainsworth and 96th.
Okay. And I want to go back first to the request that you create a crime scene diagram. Can you just give the jury, kind of at a high level, what did you do to be able to create that crime scene diagram?
First thing to do is look at Google images of the overall intersection. I've used Google now for, it seems like forever. It's incredibly accurate on their aerial stuff, and they have a measuring system within it. So we like to verify known objects in the scene. In this case, the stop bar on 96th was clear, well painted, so we used that as a starting point and measuring it from Google. It came out as about 25.3 feet, 25.4 feet. So we knew that would be a good place to start on that. When we looked at the ortho mosaic that Tacoma PD created, the stop bar was the same length. When we went back on May 18th of 23, we surveyed to that same stop bar and got the same length, 25.33 feet. So the whole initial process with Google was to get an overall look at the area, but to verify the measurements of many of those lines that we could see, and then compare that to the scan and our diagram to make sure that the scale was correct and we were going to have an accurate representation of the scene.
Okay, so it sounds like you started with the Faro scan and then used the Google overlay, is that correct?
Right, Faro scan, look at the Google first so we can see just on Google what those distances are. Then you put the Faro scan down, bring in the Google image and match those up, and it was a very accurate match.
I want to ask you about some exhibits. First of all, do you have the exhibits related to your testimony loaded on your computer there?
I do.
Okay, and is that because it's a gaming computer or has better capabilities than an ordinary laptop?
Well, I think the exhibits are either just JPEGs or PDFs, so I think anything would push those, but the diagramming program needs more horsepower, if you will.
All right. If you could start by taking a look at Exhibit 521, please. Without, obviously, you're not publishing to the jury at this point, but just look at it yourself.
And I have here 521A.
Do you actually have 521?
They're enumerated 521A through A, B, C, D. Letters that
Is there a 521 without a letter?
not right.
Okay.
You have 521A?
That's correct.
All right. And what is 521A?
That's an overview, looking down, bird's eye view of the scan that Tacoma PD did.
Okay. And if you could take a look at 521B.
That's simply zoomed in a little closer to the intersection. It still shows the 4 scan locations, or the 4 locations where the scanner was set up.
Okay. And are these still shots, so to speak, or PDFs of the actual scan program?
They were JPEGs when I provided them. If they're scanned now, they're probably PDFs, but
All
I
right.
can look.
They were JPEGs?
Let me look. They're PDFs.
I'd offer 521A and B.
I don't have any objection.
Okay, exhibit 521A and 521B are admitted.
Thank you. May we publish, Your Honor?
Proceed.
Okay. Now I think it's going to come up on this.
I'll see it on my screen.
You'll see it on your screen.
Do you want A?
A, please.
Stole my mouse.
and can you put that on the full screen? In terms of, you've got other things on there,
Yeah.
tools and those things. All right. And if you could, can you just explain to the jury what they're looking at here?
This is the bird's eye view, overhead view of the intersection of 96 and Ainsworth. The blue, purple, red, and pink dots that you see are locations that the scanner was set up 4 different places for the scans to be completed. It was done in black and white when they scanned it. That's why it looks as a gray scale here with no color other than those dots. And you can see the outline of the Tacoma police car near the stop bar, kind of in between all the dots. A couple of other slight images of patrol cars and cars throughout the intersection, the roadway, the stop bar, and some of the curbs.
And if you could go to 521B, please. And again, if you could just fill the screen with it. And can you just describe for the jury what this is?
This is simply zooming in to get this image closer so that you can better see the patrol car over the top of the stop bar, those same 4 scan locations.
Okay. And you mentioned that there were different colored dots there that represented the scan. What are you able to do with those dots in the original scan format?
In the original scan format, you can click on any of those dots and go in and see the panoramic view that the scanner is taking at the scene.
Okay. And can you do that for us now? Are you able to show that?
I have to open up the Scene to Go software. When the scan is created, Tacoma PD created a Scene to Go image, if you will. What that does is allow anyone who doesn't have the diagramming program to look at the scan and to go through it. So anyone that gets that file should be able to open it up on their computer and look at it.
Okay. And so do you have the Scene to Go
I do
on
have
your
it.
computer?
Yes.
All right. I would ask that we publish that as well, Your Honor.
Just want to make sure. Is that going to be a separate exhibit, the scan?
I can give it a separate number. It is 521. That's what I thought.
Oh,
There is a, counsel, I'm sorry, there is a 521.
Yeah, that's what it was.
which is different from 521A and B.
Correct.
So when I asked my question earlier, is there a 521, and everybody sort of assured me there isn't, that was wrong.
I don't have a 521 on it, which been provided to me, but that's provided before. I would say, I don't have an objection as long as it's admitted. I don't think that's part of 521A, so.
It sounds like it's embedded within 521A, but it is obviously something different.
It was provided on the original list, and then we made some PDFs, which are the 521A through N, or whatever letter it goes to, from that. But 521 was provided and is what he can display through the Scene to Go.
Judge, I guess my question is, if that's admitted, how does the jury manipulate it without Mr. Wells' computer?
I don't know.
My understanding, Your Honor, is that it can be used on a computer with the Scene to Go programming that's on it. So if the jury has access to a computer, they'll be able to look at it.
Well, they will need the Scene to Go software.
No, they don't need it, is my understanding. Maybe you can explain, Mr. Wells.
Scene to Go gets created. It's for Windows or Mac. You just double click on it and it just opens up. We'll see that when I open it up here. It's software that's provided, or not software, it's just created as part of the scan so that anyone out there can look at it. They don't need a special computer or anything like that. It will just open up with a double click.
So it sounds like it's available, but it may not be quite the resolution of your computer.
Well, it'll still be pretty good. I mean, this one's just the resources in the background to push the diagramming program. It should look fine.
Answer your question. So now you want to admit it's 521.
Correct, Your Honor.
The objection to admission of 521.
No, Your Honor.
No. So long as it can be played, I don't have any objection.
Okay, 521 is admitted. Proceed.
Thank you. You can publish. You can put that that up as well.
And when you open up the scene to go, this is what you get.
Okay. And can you maximize it on the screen?
Yeah, what you do is, and you see my cursor moving here on that image. If I click on that, it will open it up to the full screen. So when I click on that, that's the same thing we were just looking at as 521B.
I think what she was getting at is, can you take the image that's visible and make it fill the screen? I think that's what you were getting at, wasn't it, Ms. Eames?
Let me see here. No, because I need the sidebar to run it. So this is as you see my cursor over here,
Yeah.
that will allow me to click between those scans and then the overview map. So that's the control area over there, if you will.
Now, you said that there are 4 different scan spots, is that right? And what are the colors on them?
Blue on the left, purple kind of center top. I think we called it pink for the right top, and then red for the lower. And they also have associated numbers.
All right. And if you could, first of all, could you start on the blue one and just see if please click on it and then show the jury what is visible once you click in.
You click in, and then this upper button where I'm at now says show in panorama view. And now we're in that scene.
All right. And so can you explain to the jury, first of all, how does the scanner work in order to create this image?
It gets set up at this particular point where the blue icon was. They level it up. They input some parameters as to how in-depth they want the scan to be and what area they want it to do. And then they hit the go button or the start button, and the mirror, the unit rotates this way, and there's a mirror that's spinning constantly. The mirror is what's taking the laser beam and putting it out, and it basically does this as it's slowly rotating. And as it does that, a beam of light is hitting every single thing that it touches, and it's creating tens of thousands of points. In the scan, it's so detailed and so fine, you're seeing the resolution that we're seeing here. It was done in black and white for this particular scan as opposed to color because they were out there at night, is my understanding. But this is the imaging you get from that.
And do you know at what point these scans were taken by Tacoma PD?
Sometime after the fact, when they had fully closed the road down, everything was done at the scene. So it was sometime after.
And is that your experience in terms of processing the crime scene, that scans like this would be taken after the events, when a scene is being documented?
Yes, absolutely.
All right. Okay, so you've got us on the blue dot. Can you just show the jury what you're able to see from there? Maybe just walk us through what you're able to do when you do that.
So this view is looking from not quite the west side of the intersection east, and this is 96th. Where the police car is in front of you and the group of officers or people behind that. So you can rotate. So this is Ainsworth over here. This direction we're looking is south. You can keep rotating around, and here's the blocked roadway. This stick is a measuring globe that's part of the Faro system as a backside or a measurement site. We can so it's a 360 rotation. So now we're looking due north, and then we come back around and look here, and I can also scan or scroll back and scroll forward into the scene.
Right, and just scroll forward if you could. We can see there's a line in the road. What is that right in front of the jury to the left?
In front of the patrol car,
Right there.
that's the stop bar.
No, I'm sorry, the white covered
Oh,
object.
that's Mr. Ellis at the scene.
All right. So that was the location at the time, his location at the time that the scan was taken?
That's correct.
All right, if you could rotate back, I just want to ask you a couple questions about what they're able to see. Either direction is fine. All right, you indicated, I'm sorry, back up for just a second there. You indicated that view where we see a patrol car blocking the road. What road is that?
That's Ainsworth.
All right, and if you could continue to scan around?
That's looking west on 96th.
And then if you could stop there for a second, you can see in this picture that there appears to be kind of the truck that has some jagged edge, I guess I'll call it, at the bottom. Can you just explain to the jury what's happening here in terms of the resolution?
That's, I think, atmospheric type noise, that the squiggly lines there, it's just, for some reason, the points are creating that line. It doesn't designate anything, and I think you see it all the way through. You see it over here on the left as kind of a different looking line. It's just different things that are throwing points around.
And what are the limitations of the scan in terms of the point at which the scanner is set up?
Well, this one's considered a mid-range, so typically, although you can see a long ways in the background, typically it's set for 130 meters, which is 426 feet. Has an accuracy of 4 millimeters in that, which is 15/100ths of an inch. It will go further, as we see here. It's picking up power lines and trees way in the background type stuff, but depending on where you point it and show what parameters you want it to scan, you'll get the better resolution, the better view.
Could you zoom in again? You made reference to the fact that there were some officers standing in the background of that first photograph. Can you zoom in on that and show us?
And their umbrella up here, officer here, patrol cars, they're in suits, so they may be crime scene type people as well.
And we see at the very front, there's a patrol car that's basically right on the stop line there. Do you know if that's the patrol car at issue here at Burbank and Collins?
It is.
And let's see if you can back out then and go back to 521B, please. All right, so tell us what you're showing here on this picture.
Again, that's the bird's eye view, the overview, the blue scanner, that's the direction that they had set it up to scan, basically extending out those cone lines, even though you can rotate and see all the way through it. That's because all 4 scan positions were brought together.
Just working our way clockwise then, can you go to the purple dot, please? And what is this, if you could explain to the jury, please?
We're looking east again, up 96th, closer to the patrol car. There were 2 garbage cans here. I can scroll back a little bit. And the white front of the surfboard, if you will, that you see here, that's where the scanner can't see directly down where it's set up, so that's whited out, so it's not picking up anything there. So you scroll past that a little bit, you can still rotate again through any of this to see those angles, and you see it kind of gets a fisheye look to it as you go off of where it is. But this is the...
And if you could again use that, on that one, if you could show the full kind of 360 from that scan point, and just explain to the jury again what they're looking at.
So we're looking at the patrol car where it was stopped at the scene, back to the east there. South is across to Ainsworth, over here at Ortho 1 showing there, I guess.
And it looks like when you look where you just were a moment ago, that vehicle looks elongated, the one on Ainsworth.
Yes.
Again, what's causing that?
Well, this scan was set up to go up east on 96, so it's a little, it's picked that one up and stitched it together, but it's stretched it out because it's a skewed look at it from the point cloud.
Okay, and what about when you look at the light, the traffic light hanging there? What's the issue with that, why it looks that way?
Same thing. They focused on this area over here, and so it's just picking it up and showing a side view.
Okay, you could continue to kind of rotate around on that scan.
It's looking back to the west on 96th. Over here at ortho 000 was the blue scan we looked at first.
Thank you. If you could go back again to 521B then, please. And again, the blue that we see on there, that's kind of a long triangle, I guess I'll call it. What does that represent?
That was the parameters for that scan.
And what do you mean when you say parameters?
When they set it up, you can give it a field of view, if you will.
How about the pink, I think it's the pink dot is next. Right, so this scan is shot from where in relation to the patrol car?
West of the patrol car, behind it.
And are you able to see Mr. Ellis's location from there?
Did you mean east?
Yeah, I'm sorry, east of the patrol car looking west here. Yes, thank you, Your Honor. You can just see below where it says ortho 000 or orth 000, the location of Mr. Ellis.
Okay, you can continue to scan around on that.
Can I stop you just a minute?
Yep.
There's a pin.
I don't know how to get rid of them. I've researched it and tried. It means nothing.
Like a thumbtack.
It is.
But that's not really there, right?
It is not there. I don't know how to get rid of them.
All right, thanks.
Something in the program.
Yeah, I've tried and tried to find it, and I can't get rid of them. If you just click somewhere in the overview, inadvertently even, it'll drop that pin until you, if I close it, reopen it, then the pin is gone.
All right. Did you scan all the way around 360 based on the pink? Again, down at the bottom of that photograph, or that image, it looks like there's that little bit of the surfboard that you called it. Is that
Right. Yes.
Okay, and again, is that the area that it's just not able to pick up because it's immediately below where the scanner is set up?
That's correct.
All right, you could go back to 521B, please. And again, is this just showing the field of view of what we just looked at?
That's correct.
All right, how about to the red dot? I think maybe this is A, or is that, oh, there we go, thank you. All right, if you could just take us through the field of view that you can see from
This-
this pinpoint of the red dot.
I'm sorry, did you say this is A or B? Or 521?
This is 521 that we're looking at live, the other one was 521B.
Okay.
This view's looking west down 96th. Ainsworth is to the left.
And are you able to see Mr. Ellis in that photograph?
Yes, right here.
Okay.
Sorry about the pin.
And is that looking what direction?
This is looking east on 96th,
Okay, keep going.
all the way back around to Ainsworth.
All right, if you could take a look at, there are some additional JPEG exhibits that were created from this ortho scan, is that right?
Yes.
If you could take a look at 521C through H, please.
This is C.
C through H.
Oh, did you want me to show it right now?
No, I want
Oh.
you to just take a quick look through them, and then I'm
Got
gonna
it.
ask you, lay some additional foundation.
Okay.
And what are those, Mr. Wells?
Those are screen captures of views within the scan.
And they come straight from the scan, is that correct?
Yes.
I'd offer 521C through H. I'm sorry? You want to have them there, or should we provide them? I
No,
can
no,
mind.
no. Well, Mr. Ferguson, looking at those, I have no objection to admission of situation.
No objection, thank you. No objection, Your Honor.
Okay, Exhibit 521C, D, E, F, G, and H are admitted.
And may I publish, Your Honor?
Proceed.
All right. And if we could just kind of go through those, Mr. Wells, and just give us the exhibit number as you look at them, as you display them to the jury, please.
This will be 521C.
And you said that's just a screen capture from one of the scans, is that right?
Correct. We're looking east on 96th.
And you mentioned earlier about the stop bar. Can you just point to where the stop bar is and why that was significant for you?
I can't zoom in and out on this, but it's right in front of or underneath the front of the police car here.
And you appear to be moving your mouse over that.
Yeah,
Is
the
that
cursor's
correct?
going back and forth across it.
And why is the stop bar important from your perspective?
That's what we use to help scale the diagram to ensure accuracy.
And what do you mean by that, scale the diagram?
When you bring in the images, you need to make sure you apply a scale to it. The stop bar was 25.33 feet roughly, so that was the scale that was used. So when you lay it over the top of it, it should match it very, very closely, and it did. But if you have something that's off somewhere else, you can slightly refine it by clicking the overall image and then say apply scale over a known distance.
All right, you want to go through D, please?
Five 521D is simply a zoomed in view looking east on 96th.
How about E?
Looking pretty much straight down the center line, still east on 96th.
How about F?
Looking north from not quite on Ainsworth.
Right, that's as if shot from the distance of, or from the direction of Ainsworth going north, is that correct?
That is correct.
How about G?
Further back, still looking east on 96th.
All right, and H?
Looking to the southeast, if you will.
Thank you. All right, you mentioned a moment ago that as part of creating a crime scene diagram or display in this case, that you also used a Google image, is that right?
Yes.
Can you just explain to the jury what you did? And first of all, are Google images something that you use as an expert in this field in terms of diagramming or creating a reconstruction?
Almost every time.
And why do you use them?
They give, not only can you go back into the 1990s to get old stuff on them in terms of aerial images, but they're pretty up to date, especially the more metropolitan areas. As you get further out into the wilderness, if you will, they're less detailed, but they keep everything up to date. As part of their aerials, they also do street view imagery where they drive through showing things that you can look at as well, though you can't measure in the street view version. But from the aerial version, you can measure anything within that image. And I and my team have hand measured scenes. We'd look at the Google image and see a stop bar like this and say it's showing 25.4 or 0.33 or 0.5 on the Google based on where we can click it from that image. When we get to that scene, we'll hand measure it to verify that, and if we're surveying, we'll verify it, and if we're flying the drone, we can verify it that way, and we also set out our own scale using cones so that we have that. But overall, I've checked it thousands and thousands of times to make sure, and it's incredibly accurate, and that's why we use it.
And what does that allow you to do?
It allows you to match up or bring in. If we didn't have this scan, for example, and just wanted to look at this intersection, we'd have a really accurate look from the Google that we can put there. With the scan, they can be incorporated so that they match up either in front of or behind each other.
Now, you mentioned that you looked at used the Faro scan and this scene to go that we just looked at. Were there other items from the crime scene that you used, or other items of evidence that you used in order to create the scenes here?
Yeah, for the overall diagram, we looked at the videos that were obtained to help place vehicles within the scene. And once you start with the base diagram and have it there, now you start adding things, and it allows for layers to be created. So you can put any part of an image on one layer through like maybe 1,000 layers if you have that many, but you can show them or hide them throughout that entire process. So we used the camera from the house, I think it's called the Vivint camera. We used the hand videos from the McDowell vehicle and the Cowden vehicle, scene diagramming, and I think there were some videos taken at the scene by one of the officers as well.
And did you put all of those together into the crime scene diagrams that you were asked to create?
Not as much put them in there as we use them so that we could place other objects like the patrol car, the McDowell vehicle, the Cowden vehicle within the diagram, yes.
You can take a look at 521I, please.
Okay.
And what is that?
That's the Faro scan with the Google image matched up with it. And then I put a scale, a north arrow, and the street names on there.
And off of 521I.
Proceed.
Morning, good, thank you.
Can you turn on your,
When you say you put the scale in, is that I know the jury can't see it, is that the scale in the upper left-hand corner of Exhibit 521I?
It is, and that's just a symbol that comes in from the diagramming program, so you can place that in there on top of it. It was not scanned as part of this. I put that in there along with the north arrow and the street names.
Understood. And so when the scaling says 0 to 50 feet and then 50 to 100 feet, where do you derive that information from?
When you bring in the scale, it knows what the Google image is, and it matches up with that, so I measure that and then measure things within the diagram to make sure that that's accurate as well.
All right, that was my question. So you confirmed the scale with the Faro scan to determine that scale accurately depicts that length as it relates to this exhibit.
That is correct.
That's all I have. Thank you, Judge. I have no objection.
521I is admitted.
And may I publish, Your Honor?
Proceed.
Right. Can you just walk the jury through what they're looking at here on 521I?
So the scale Counselor was talking about is right up here in the upper left-hand corner of the north arrow. 96th Street South, Ainsworth Avenue South is down below. The gray or whitish looking overlay, that's the scans, the 4 scans put together to create that ortho mosaic. And the Google image is everything you see around that.
And again, how were you able to kind of match what was on the Faro scan versus what you put here with the overlay of the Google map?
We aligned the stop bar initially, that was right in front of the patrol car, and then matched up the other portions of the lane lines, the arrows, the bicycle emblem, et cetera, to make sure that all of that was a match.
And so we see on the 521I that the patrol car appears to be right on both the line for the turn lane as well as at the stop bar. Is that accurate in terms of where that car was positioned?
Right, yes, it is when it was scanned.
And that's based on the scan?
That's correct, yes.
Now, you said that you're kind of able to then go in and place other objects. And were you asked to create or place other objects on this scan?
Ultimately on the overall diagram, yes.
Perhaps you can take us there to the overall diagram then.
This is, so to speak, this is the Faro 3D diagramming software. This is the the Faro, the ortho mosaic that was created as the base layer.
Is this 5218?
Yes, it's 521A.
It doesn't show, pardon me, it doesn't show the actual colored dots. You can see dots on the screen, but this is in the diagramming program.
No, I get it, but I just want to make sure for our record that this is 521A.
I have a very different 521A.
What is this one then?
Sorry, who was that?
This is
I didn't hear your objection.
My objection was that I have a very different 521A. Thank you.
What exhibit is this?
It's part of 521A, but it's in the diagramming program, which is what he needs to be able to use to display what will then be offered as screenshots of these events. I'm sorry, it's 521.
So it's part of 521, not 521A.
Correct.
Any issues over there?
No, I agree, it's part of 521.
Okay, great. Thank you. Continue.
Thank you. You can go back. All right, so just kind of, if you could walk us through in the diagramming program, what you did to create the photographs or the crime scene here.
So here's the initial Faro zone scans. So this is where I'm clicking now. It says Open Layer Manager. That's where you layer your system. So when I click and show a green, now the Google image comes in with that. And
Which is basically 521I, is that correct?
that's correct. And within this diagramming program as well, you can zoom in, zoom out, move left and right, and see that. So that was these are the first couple of steps matching all this up into the diagramming program.
Okay. And you said that you were asked about the placement of some different cars that weren't at the scene when the scan was done, but that you were aware had been present earlier. Is that correct?
Yes.
And what cars are those that you were asked to place?
The McDowell vehicle, I believe it was Mr. Lowry was the vehicle behind Miss McDowell, and Mr. Cowden was over at the stop bar on Ainsworth.
And again, can you just describe to the jury how you were able to determine where those cars were on the night in question based on this scan information?
We knew the location of the Vivint camera, the doorbell camera, if you will, on the house 1438, 96th Street. If you're looking at the house from the street, it's to the left side of the door. So from that point, watching their video and looking at the McDowell and Lowry vehicles, we were able to draw lines across known points on the diagram, light poles, end of lane lines, etc. So we would draw a line across that to get the relative location, if you will, on this image from right to left, that those two vehicles, McDowell and Lowry, were behind the patrol car, and then Mr. Cowden, where his vehicle was located. We used his video to match up with light poles and things in the background to come back to the approximated area of the driver's seat of his car to position his vehicle.
Now, you mentioned the Vivint video. Are we able to see on this image that you have, are you able to identify where that Vivint video was, where the doorbell camera is?
Well, it's, as you see the cursor finger back here, this is the 1438, the house. It's going to be right in here.
And you're indicating the second house from the right at the intersection, is that correct?
That is correct.
On the
Second house-
south side.
second house two.
Second house
Second house to the right,
on the south side, correct?
on the south side.
Yes.
Okay, great. And if you could just stand back out a little bit there. All right, so then you talked about this diagramming program that you're using here.
Is there an objection?
Yes,
Mr.
Judge, I just
Conrad.
want to raise one issue. So the 521 that I have, is Mr. Wells operating this through a different platform right now?
I don't know.
Your Honor, this is 521 that is being used in the diagramming program.
Okay, so it's being opened up through a different program than what we previously had. Okay,
It's not just the raw, exactly. This is with the Google overlay,
okay,
and then the placement of the vehicles, and then, as I've already provided, there are screenshots of what he is going to show.
okay. I just wanted to make sure. I didn't know if this was a program that the jury would have available to them as well.
They don't have this program available to them. That's why they'll have the screenshots.
Understood.
Well, let me ask a question I don't think we've got to. I'm not sure we're getting there. You used a Google map photograph for this, for the basic underlayment here.
Yes, sir.
Were there any vehicles in the Google map, the Google photograph, at the time you used it?
I don't recall there being any.
Okay, so it just happened that it was a blank street. It doesn't happen very
It
often.
does not happen very often.
Okay.
You can erase them in the diagramming program if there happens to be a vehicle there, but you would see a gray smudge in there where you, doesn't quite make it perfect.
Okay, that's kind of my question, is were there any artifacts at all that you had to remove?
I don't recall having to remove any.
But some of the vehicles that are placed here were vehicles that were placed here, like for instance, we see off the street. Or did you place each of these vehicles there, or were these vehicles that were present during the Google photograph, which may or may not have been present at the time of this incident?
Those were just present in that Google image.
Okay, so I'm looking at, let's say, on the far right, the upper right-hand corner, this looks like a grayish kind of car in a driveway.
Yep.
Do we know whether or not that vehicle was there that evening in that spot?
I don't recall offhand.
Okay. But that's something from the Google image, it's not something from the scan.
That is correct.
Okay, just as a, for instance, sorry, just go ahead.
And just so we can clarify that, maybe I'll just walk up to the screen. If you can see where I'm pointing, where there's the white vehicle, a kind of gray vehicle, and another white vehicle there.
Right.
Are those vehicles or cars that you know, or do you know if they were present on the night of this incident on March 3rd, 2020?
I don't know if they were present that night.
All right, so they just came with the satellite, the Google satellite image, is that right?
Yes.
All right. May I proceed? All right, so you said that you were asked to place the McDowell vehicle. Can you show the jury where you were able to place the McDowell vehicle at the time of this, of these events?
So I just put the McDowell vehicle with an arrow on it on the diagram.
Are you able to make that any larger or not?
Yes.
All right, and how did you place it both within the lane as well as its location relative to the patrol car?
Two things. Made the assumption that most people drive somewhat centered up in the lane, approaching, and then watching the video that she took, and you could see the center hood of her car, and we used it to align with the outside passenger edge of the patrol car, and then we took the view from the Vivint camera, which if I have to zoom out there, is there approximately on the house, and we drew a line across the arrow, the left turn arrow, because that matched up with the back of the car. So the placement left to right, if you will, matched the line on that arrow that's painted on the roadway to place her car, and then looking at her video and seeing that it was offset and that she had, at least in the video view, she could see the area to the passenger side and forward of the police car, allowed us to put her car approximately where it is.
you said you were also asked to place the Lowry vehicle. Can you show the jury where you were able to place the Lowry vehicle on the night in question? And again, how were you able to place that? And can you zoom in a little bit?
We used the same line matching here to go across where we could see it going across the word that says only, and then near the end of the white lane line. And it appeared that his vehicle was also centered up in the lane, so we left it there, but the left to right we used with this matching line.
And did you then take a screenshot showing the placement of these two vehicles and provide it as an exhibit?
I'm sure I did.
Can you take a look at 521J? Again, without showing the jury yet.
Oh, it will only allow me, it's switched to this screen, so my mouse is stuck over there, so if I open it, I think you're gonna see it.
Okay. Yeah, approach, Your Honor. Handing you what's been marked as State's Exhibit 521J. Do you recognize that?
I do.
And what is it?
It's the same thing we were just looking at on the screen, a screen capture of that without the location lines.
Thank you. I'd offer 521J.
No objection.
I'm gonna have an objection, but I'd like to let the witness, and this might be a good time for a break, because I think it's gonna take.
Okay, we're about to involve our morning recess anyway. So we'll take our morning recess for 15 minutes. Ladies and gentlemen, please do not discuss the case among yourselves or with anyone else.
trial yet. The images that Mr. Wells is referencing for placement of the vehicle are derived from Exhibit 20. And so I think once Ms. Eakes is done with direct examination, or at least before I begin cross-examination, if that's before lunch, I would just ask to recess, because what I'll do is get still photos from the video of the 3 areas that I spoke to Mr. Wells during the break that show the perspective. That way we don't admit the video to contest the weight of the testimony without admitting the video. And so I just asked for the opportunity to get those 3 still shots before I finish cross of Mr. Wells.
That's fine if they want to have still shots.
All right, so we'll reserve our ruling on 521J, but we'll allow the jury to view it in the meantime.
Understood, that's what I understood.
Okay, thank you. All right, let's have the jury.
Yes.
Welcome back, everybody. Please be seated. Okay, as to 521J, the court will reserve its ruling, but you may show it to the jury.
Thank you. We can go ahead and publish it, Mr. Wells. All right, so this is 521J, and is this, what is this?
That's the Google, the scan, the scale and street stuff, and the McDowell placement of the vehicle and the vehicle behind McDowell.
And if we could go back to the diagramming program, I forgot to ask you about, I think you said you were asked also to place the Cowden vehicle, is that right?
Yes.
All right, can you tell the jury, how did you go about placing the Cowden vehicle on this diagram?
So he was at the stop bar, or the stop bar area on Ainsworth. Find that. So here's the approximated position of his car at the intersection, and utilizing his video We did 3 different lines. One going across the mirror of the patrol car, one going to the base of the street light here, and one going down a seam on the driveway, and we just brought those back. If I zoom in here, you can see where the ends of the lines are. Driver's seat position, and his video camera was up and going looking through the windshield. So that was the approximated end of those lines.
And it sounds like you placed Mr. Cowden's vehicle based on the view from his video, is that correct?
Yes,
And so it sounds like, did you look at his video as well?
I did.
And going back to then 521J, is Mr. Cowden's vehicle also depicted on 521J?
It is right down here.
All right. And can you just zoom in a little bit so the jury can see?
I can't zoom in, well, probably zoom in.
Okay, thank you. Now, if you could go back to the scene to go, please. I'm sorry, I meant the programming, the diagramming program. All right, now you said that one of the features of this program is that you're able to estimate distances or determine distances from objects based on the program, is that right?
Right, it has a measuring tool in it.
Can you just show us how that works generally?
So you click on this dimension line that the finger is on, and you come down here and you can pick a starting point anywhere, for example, at the corner of the stop bar on this corner, and then I bring it over and touch the stop bar on this corner, and then it shows us that that's 89.32 feet.
Okay. And were you asked to provide distances from the cars and the various points of view of people to locations within this diagram?
Yes.
All right. And can you tell the jury, with respect to the distance from Ms. McDowell's vehicle to the front of the patrol vehicle, what distance is that? Correct.
I'm clicking at the front of the patrol vehicle and going back on to behind the windshield, top of the windshield to about the driver's area. And depending on, again, where you click in there. So at this point where you see my cursor there, it's almost to the back of what looks like the front window, or where the upright back of the seat should be. It's 53.05 feet or 53 feet.
Okay. And did you create screenshots of those locations at the time that, prior to your testimony, of the approximate location?
I did, yes.
All right, if you could take a look at 521K, please. What is that, 521K?
That's the same image we were just looking at, and the measured distance on it is 52.74 feet for the same measurement you just had, and I think I said it was 53.05 feet, and that's based on when I just did it, I clicked on the roof of the car compared to this. 0.74 feet compared to 0.03 feet is about 3 inches difference.
All right. And I would offer 521K.
No objection.
521K is admitted.
Thank you. May we publish, Your Honor?
Proceed.
Thank you. All right, and again, if you could just, if you're able to kind of zoom in, I know it's a JPEG or a PDF, but again, can you just tell us what you're estimating here based on distance?
The distance from approximately, again, you can see my cursor, that's where the door seam is, so a driver's eye is somewhere in this area, or her eye, not the camera in this case, not the phone. Approximating that position, you click in there, and you click again on the front of the patrol car, and it gives you that measurement.
All right. And were you asked to do the same thing with respect to the Lowry vehicle?
Yes.
All right, if you could take a look at 521M and tell us what that is.
Using the same methodology, clicking on the front of the patrol car and pulling back to about where Mr. McDowell would be in his seat. It's 79.82 feet.
And I'd offer 521M.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
Yeah, did I not say that?
Dell.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Sir, I didn't hear what you said.
If we're talking about Mr. Lowry, I have no objection, but he said McDowell.
I think the way he's described this is not as Mr. Lowry, but as the vehicle behind the McDowell.
Understood. No objection.
No objection.
Okay, 521M is admitted.
May we publish?
Proceed.
All right, looking at 521M, can you again show the jury what you determined was the distance and from what points that you measured?
So I clicked at the front of the patrol car, you pull the measurement arrow across, and it's to an area about here on the Lowry vehicle for 79.82 feet.
And when you say here, because the record can't tell what here is, can you just describe it for us?
The area to the right of the upper windshield line, or the right windshield line, and in front of the dark door seam between the two doors.
Thank you. And did you make the same measurement with respect to the distance from the Cowden vehicle to the front bumper of the patrol vehicle?
I did.
If you could take a look at 521L. And what is that?
76.01 feet, or 76 feet.
And is that the picture, is that a screenshot of the measurement?
Yes, shows the Cowden vehicle at the stop bar on Ainsworth or over it to the front of the patrol car.
I'd offer 521L.
I have no objection. Objection, Your Honor.
Okay. 521L is admitted.
May we publish, Your Honor?
Yes.
All right, and again, you might need to zoom in a little bit for the jury to the extent you can and show us what we're looking at here.
Go back here. So that's the Cowden vehicle to the front of the patrol car, and again approximating an area about where he is in his car, 76 feet.
Okay. And again, you're not estimating just from the front of the Cowden vehicle, you're kind of trying to place where someone would be sitting inside the vehicle? Is that correct?
Approximately, yes.
All right, were you aware that there were, I think you talked a moment ago about the Vivint video. Were you aware that there were issues or questions asked of you with respect to the view or the distance from that house, windows at that house, to the front of the patrol car?
Yes.
All right, if we could take a look at 521N, please. And what is that?
That's the same view with the vehicles still in place, but it's now showing two measured distances, one to the front of the patrol car, one to the position of Mr. Ellis from the side or the west side window on the house at 1438 96th Street.
And you said that to Mr. Ellis, do you mean to where his body was at rest?
That's correct.
All right, and if we could actually go back to 521L for just a moment. Have you been out to the White residence?
I have.
And were you able to view the locations where Miss White, or the windows where Miss Ayanna White said she viewed the events?
I did.
All right, and can you show us on 521L if you've highlighted those areas in any way?
Yes. I'll zoom in a little bit. Where my cursor is circling.
And what have you denoted there, and what color?
Blue lines.
And what do they signify?
Those are that's the window glass on the windows.
And have you been inside the White residence?
Yes.
And what, can you just explain the first, start with the blue line on the left and then the blue line on the right, where those are relative to the house, inside the house, the layout?
Both blue lines are part of a bedroom that are on the northwest corner of the house. The side window, if you will, is a smaller window. And the front-facing window, the one that faces towards 96, is a larger window.
Going back then to 521N, are the measurements that you took from, in 521N, are from which window then that we just looked at?
The side window, the smaller window.
I'd offer 521N.
Was that no objection?
Yes, it
You're choking over there.
No objection, Judge.
No objection, Your Honor.
521N is admitted.
May we publish, Your Honor?
Proceed.
He said yes.
Okay. I'm waiting for, I don't do anything. It happens back there
Oh,
when it
I'm
comes up
sorry.
on that screen.
Apologies. All right, so can you just walk us through what is shown here in 521N?
So we see the front of the patrol car that's been there. We see the position of Mr. Ellis after the fact. And then we see the arrows that are going to the side window at the northwest corner of the house.
Okay, could you just zoom in so that the jury can see the lines and the distances? You might just need to scroll around a little bit. But. All right, so from the side window to the front of the patrol car, what is the distance there?
85.31 feet.
All right, what about from the side window to the position where Mr. Ellis was at rest in the scans?
108.55 feet.
Thank you. Now, you mentioned that you had seen the videos from the Vivint video, is that correct?
Yes.
And on the Vivint video, were you aware of another neighbor or an individual who came out and was in the street directing traffic?
Yes.
And were you able or were you asked to make some measurements with respect to the distance of that individual to the location of Mr. Ellis, where Mr. Ellis was?
Yes.
And in terms of that estimate, first of all, were you asked to make measurements with respect to where different things happened that you can see in the video in terms of the struggle between the officers?
Approximations of those positions, yes.
And tell the jury about that. Why were they only approximations?
It was a fluid situation. Everything was moving very quickly. It was within a somewhat confined area, but it was moving back and forth and up and down, if you will, in terms of looking at it through those videos. So freeze framing it for a split second in the video and then trying to approximate that position based on what we're seeing relative to the patrol car and the garbage cans and the curb lines.
And with respect to the distance from where the citizen was, the neighbor was, who was directing traffic, to what point did you attempt to measure the distance? To what point?
I believe it was to the location where Mr. Ellis was being handcuffed, possibly.
And how did you determine the location of where Mr. Ellis was being handcuffed?
From the Cowden vehicle and his view as they turned Mr. Ellis over, and it looked like they were handcuffing or had handcuffed him at that point.
All right, if you could take a look at 521O, please. And what's that a image of?
That's an image of, I have it as citizen directing traffic. I just saw his name was Mr. Hayes, to the location that Mr. Ellis was being handcuffed.
And does it show the distance there?
106.82 feet.
I'd offer 521O.
I have no objection.
Proceed.
Mr. Wells, 521O, thank you. It indicates that the area where Mr. Ellis was handcuffed, is that correct?
Yes.
And you said that you reviewed the Cowden video to determine where he was actually handcuffed?
It looked to me like they had turned Mr. Ellis over and his arms were behind him, so I took that as the area where he was handcuffed.
Or are you aware he wasn't actually handcuffed in that area?
Well, that's
I'm
what,
going to object to that assumes facts, not in evidence.
Well, it is conclusory. I'm not going to sustain the objection, but would you ask it another way?
Sure. The Cowden video doesn't actually show Mr. Ellis ever in handcuffs, does it?
there's not enough detail on it to see it. It looked to me like with the position of his arms and having handcuffed people, that's where it might have happened.
Okay. So when you watched the video, you saw Officer Burbank with a taser in his hand during the entirety of that video, right?
I don't know if it was the entirety, but I saw a taser in his hand, yes.
Okay, did you ever see any handcuffs in the video?
I don't recall seeing any.
Okay, so it's possible that's not the area that Mr. Ellis was handcuffed in?
It's possible. It's what it looked like to me.
Okay. So just so I understand, then 521O, where you indicate that's the location based on Cowden's video where Mr. Ellis was during the entirety of that video?
No.
Well, then how did you place Mr. Ellis in that location?
Not on the entirety of the video because it was moving back and forth.
Okay.
But when he was on the ground, turned around, and it looked to me like his hands were behind his back, that's the position I chose.
Okay. I guess that was a poor question I asked. Your placement on 521O is reliant solely on the Cowden video.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have, Judge.
So,
Well, I think it's going to go to weight, so I guess I won't object and we'll cross-examine about that.
you object to the words handcuffed on here?
No, I think the jury knows why that was put there, so I don't have objection with that.
Okay. Mr. Conrad?
I don't have any objection, Your Honor.
Okay, 521O is admitted.
And may we publish, Your Honor?
Yes.
All right, and again, could you just take the jury through what we can see on 521? Please.
The circle and arrow to the right side at the end of the green arrow are the location where the witness or the citizen was directing traffic. The measurement arrow goes back to the approximated area where I believe Mr. Ellis was being handcuffed at 106.82 feet.
And tell us, the citizen directing traffic, how were you able to position that individual, Mr. Hayes?
Through the Vivint video, he walked down a driveway and then moved into position, and you could see him silhouetted there, and we did the same methodology using a measurement line, or not a measurement line, a directional line to show his approximate location somewhere within that circle.
Okay. And you have kind of a circle as opposed to a pinpoint. Why is that? And same with the area that says Ellis was handcuffed.
Because I don't think he stayed completely still, the citizen, and the area around Mr. Ellis was fluid all the time, so it was an approximated area, so the circle's just trying to depict that it's not a specific pinpoint.
And I'm sorry, what did you say the distance was? And maybe you can zoom in on it for people, for the jurors.
106.82 feet.
Mr. Wells, were you also asked to take some measurements from the front of the patrol car to the eventual resting place of Mr. Ellis that we see in the scan?
Yes.
If you could take a look at 521P, please.
Okay.
And what is 521P depicting?
It's the diagram, or the image, the diagram image location of the patrol car to the position of Mr. Ellis after the fact with the distance there.
And from what point on the patrol car to the distance of Mr. Ellis's body?
The front of the patrol car.
Offer 521P.
I have no objection.
521P is admitted.
May I publish, Your Honor?
Yes.
All right, and again, maybe you can zoom in a little bit here and just show the jury what this depicts.
measurement line from the front of the patrol car to about the center of where Mr. Ellis was after the fact.
And what's the distance there?
27.24 feet.
All right, so if you could go back to the GoPro, please, or I'm sorry, to the Scene to Go program, the diagramming program.
Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry, the one with the diagramming program as the overlay.
Of course.
All right, so based on this program, and we just looked at measurements, are you able to use that same kind of distance and estimate for anything that might have been picked up on the scans that night?
Yes, anything in the scans or that's on the Google image.
And what do you mean when you say on the Google image? You mean the things you've already placed or other things?
Anything in the Google image, it's all scaled together, so you can get a distance for anything in the image.
All right, so would you be able, for example, to tell the distance between the front of the patrol car and the front porch of the White House, of the Ayanna White House?
Yes.
All right. And same if you see a piece of evidence in the crime scene, in the scan, would you be able to estimate that distance to another point, for example?
Yes.
All right, I want to talk a little bit. You mentioned earlier that you did some additional work with respect to the view of Mr. Cowden. Can you just remind the jury of what you did or what you were asked to do?
We were asked to extend Ainsworth Avenue back from the intersection that we see in the scan here where it cuts off about this second tree, extend it backwards. And I think we went, the total distance back from the stop bar area was about 156 feet. And to do that, we went to the scene, took GoPro photos, created a point cloud in Pix 4D, and then put it in, but it was put into a different program because we were asked to do a animation as part of that.
And so with respect to the scans, you said you received those through the process of the discovery that were taken by the investigators on the night of this incident. Is that right?
Yes.
And there were 4 scans. Were there any scans that went further back down Ainsworth, meaning to the south?
No.
And in terms of the number of scans here, 4 scans, is that typical in your experience in terms of the number of scans?
It depends on the size of the scene and the complexity of the scene. If there's significant physical evidence laying on the roadway, then you might do additional scans more in depth in those areas. If you had it, and some of these witnesses may not have been known about then, but you typically want to take more than you think you need.
So with respect to the going back down Ainsworth, did you take any photographs to kind of illustrate the work that you did to try to establish the view of Mr. Cowden as he came up going north on Ainsworth?
Yes, the GoPro camera was mounted on it's not a prism pole, it's a measuring rod that you can screw the camera into at the top. And then you can remotely take photos as you're walking along. And in this case, we started back to the south on Ainsworth and took photos from the west side of the roadway towards the north side of Ainsworth to show the fence line and the trees and the shrubs and the roadway.
And what were you attempting to capture in the GoPro going back further on Ainsworth?
The layout of Ainsworth going back, the lane lines, the curb lines, and then the shrubs and fencing matching up with the rounded curbing coming off of 96th.
And for what purpose?
So that we could get tie-in points to the scan itself and then show that the remainder of the roadway extended back was also accurate. And since they were our own photos in this case, we set cones out along the east side of the roadway that we hand measured out at 10 feet, and that was the scale we used for that portion to then merge it in.
If you could take a look at Exhibit 532. What is Exhibit 532, Mr. Wells?
One sec. It's one of the GoPro photos.
Of Ainsworth or the view of Cowden, is that correct?
Of just Ainsworth, the road Ainsworth, yeah.
All right, I'd offer 532.
Your Honor, subject as to relevance.
Your Honor, I believe they're relevant to show the further view of Mr. Cowden as he came up Ainsworth.
Well, you don't know what that is.
I'll sustain the objection.
Your Honor, I'd offer them for illustrative purposes then.
Illustrative of what?
Illustrative, again, of kind of the further back of the road approaching up to the intersection.
I'm mystified by the importance of that, the significance of it, the relevance of it.
Well, I think that it will go to the issues of Mr. Cowden's view as he came up Ainsworth towards the intersection, and at what point he could see the patrol car.
Well, 532 doesn't tell us that, does it?
Their foundation for the next exhibit, Your Honor, which are 527, starting at 527.
I would say let's go to 527.
Okay, we can do that. You mentioned that you did some GoPro photos, and were you able to create scans as a result of that GoPro work that you did to establish kind of going back down Ainsworth in Mr. Cowden's vehicle?
Yes, it was, a point cloud was created and then it was merged in with the Faro scan.
If you could take a look at 525, 526, and 527. And tell us what those exhibits are.
.527 shows everything all the way back to a distance of about 159 feet, a little over. Shows Ainsworth, the layout of Ainsworth approaching 96th Street. And this is just 527.
Okay, what about 526?
526 is a more zoomed in view, and it shows a distance that Mr. Cowden's vehicle is back from the stop bar.
Okay. And what about 525?
Still a zoomed in view, but Mr. Cowden's vehicle is closer to the stop bar, about 1.65 feet from it.
And are these scans, these exhibits created based on the GoPro work that you just talked about in terms of Ainsworth as well as the scans that were taken at the scene?
Yes.
I'd offer 525, 526, and 527.
Same objection, Your Honor.
There's no foundation that these were taken from the perspective of Mr. Cowden. Which lane of travel he's in, how far away he is.
I can ask a few more questions if the court wants.
Well, there's a green material on the right-hand side of the road. Is this vegetation?
Yes.
Do you know what the vegetation was like on March 3rd, 2020,
This was the day we went out there.
which was 2 years later?
That's correct.
Vegetation plays a role in when you can see somebody, right?
It does.
If I may ask just a couple more questions. Mr. Wells, was the vegetation visible in the scans that were taken that night?
To the extent that the scan went, yes.
All right. So at least in terms of closer to the intersection, was the vegetation present in those videos?
Yes.
And I can offer it for illustrative purposes, Your Honor.
May I ask a couple questions, Your Honor?
Sure.
I mean,
Can you turn?
yeah, thank you. Sorry. The vegetation itself, other than it being green, you don't know anything about how it existed back in 2020 on March 3rd/4th, correct?
Just what it looked like in the scene photos and the scan and the hand videos that were taken.
Whether it was trimmed the same way as it was when you took these photos, you don't know.
Do not.
Height, width, and everything else.
I don't, well, I might be able to measure the height off the scans, but we did put a measuring stick in on one of the photos to show the height of the shrubs, I believe.
I'll have the same objections, Your Honor.
May I question him a little bit further, Your Honor?
Sure.
What other documents, you talked about looking at the scans, and I think you just mentioned a moment ago some photos. What else did you look at to determine whether or not these were reasonably accurate in terms of the view that Mr. Cowden, or the distance Mr. Cowden would be in terms of the view of the patrol car?
Well, we looked at the overall scene photos taken by Tacoma PD, incorporated with the scans, and then our photos, keeping in mind that Mr. Cowden's view is from a seated position in the patrol car with an eye height of, maybe 4 feet or 4'2". We simply wanted to show that the vegetation, albeit on the day that we were there, was along the east side of the roadway and wrapped around the corner to the curb, the same as we could see in the scans.
And did you also use Mr. Cowden's video to see from where he was eventually parked when he, or stopped, when he took the video? Did you use that as well to determine the approximate location of his vehicle?
Right, when we had placed his vehicle based on where it stopped, yes.
Thank you. Can I offer for illustrative purposes? I think it goes to weight, not admissibility.
Mr. Fricky?
Location of the vehicle, the Cowden's vehicle, has already been admitted based on where he was parked, based on his video. Everything leading up to that is just not relevant. Whether he's looking, he's not looking, or whatever, it's all not relevant.
In terms of, it's not relevant, what?
It's not relevant for purposes of this case, what we're doing here, without knowing what Mr. Cowden would have to say leading up to this situation.
And
All
Mr.
right,
Cowden
well,
had to call
here's
this
what
one.
I'm going to do. I'm going to excuse the jury. It's almost lunchtime anyway, so we got 4 minutes to that. We're going to stick around here and have a little conversation, though. So we'll talk about it outside their presence. Ladies and gentlemen, please excuse us. Enjoy your lunch. Please do not discuss the case among yourselves with anyone else. And please be back by 1:15. Please be seated, everybody. Well, here's what I'm missing the significance of at the moment. Maybe, Ms. Eakes, you could explain this to me, and that maybe will help your explanation to me about all this. So the Cowden vehicle, we know it came to arrest at a point north of where we are on Exhibit 525, where the car's placed, right? Because the car comes to a rest a little bit beyond the stop line.
Correct.
Do we know how long he was there?
He will testify that he had just pulled up, and I guess I should elaborate. Mr. Cowden is going to testify. The defense attacked him in terms of, in the interview, about whether or not he could actually see something as he's kind of coming up and then stopping at the light. These are basically meant to address the issue of at what point is he able to see the front of the patrol car versus half the patrol car versus all of the patrol car. That's really what these are intended to do, based on that suggestion that he somehow couldn't actually see anything as he kind of rolled up to the scene. And again, he was driving straight down Ainsworth, which, as the court can see from the photos and the GoPro photos show, is a straight shot view to the intersection. And he says that he saw Mr. Ellis, again, kind of on the sidewalk, walking towards the passenger side door of the patrol car, which again, the defense was disputing whether or not he could actually see that from his location. So that's what these photos go to, and this is what this will point to.
For the record, no one attacked Mr. Calvin Lance.
No one
Can you turn
did
your-
what?
Microphone.
Nobody attacked Mr. Calvin, just for the record. We certainly asked him questions during the interview, but he was not attacked.
Well, he just got there. Do we have any idea how much time we're talking about? I mean, he could have been sitting there, because this is a T intersection for one thing. So he's got to turn left or right. So, you know, he can't go straight ahead. And where we've got him pictured in the diagram is that he's in the right-hand or curb lane on Ainsworth. And,
Correct, and that's based, just so the court knows, that's based on his statements as well as the position of his video.
right,
He was turning
obviously we can see what we can see from the video.
Correct, he was turning right onto 96, that's why the car is placed in that lane.
Right, yeah, and that's fine. I mean, and the way the car was placed, I don't know whether or not, you know, he approaches the intersection on the inside lane, and then as he gets there, he kind of angles across, or he's going directly across it. Or whether or not he's there for 5 seconds before he makes a turn, he's got to come to a stop. He's got to look in the direction of other traffic. I mean, just got there can mean instantaneously, or it can mean 10 seconds, right?
I think it's a little difficult for Mr. Cowden to estimate exactly how long. He said he could see it as he was driving up,
Sure.
and then he stopped at the intersection.
But from where his car was stopped,
Correct.
he could clearly see it, and there's no dispute about that.
Well, there
Right.
sounded to be a dispute about that.
Well, you can see what the video shows, right? So presumably he could have seen what the video could see. There's no dispute about that, is there?
The video speaks for itself.
If only he could talk.
Right, but the video doesn't start right at the beginning of the interaction, and that's
Sure.
why he sees interaction before that.
And I suppose it's possible that
While he stopped.
I suppose it's possible he let his car creep forward at some point too, I don't know.
Correct.
But presumably there's a reason for him to turn on his camera,
Correct.
presumably because he was seeing something that was worth photographing.
That's right. That's what he will say.
This is just to show that he could have, if his vehicle was in such and such a place, he could have seen it. Is the idea that where it is here in 525, where it's a foot or two back from the stop line, an indication of when he could first see it?
No.
Actually, could have seen it a little bit sooner than that.
Right.
Although not by much.
7.69 feet back, which is at 526, you can see the front bumper of the patrol car. At 1.69 feet, which is 525, you can see most of the patrol car.
Okay, and we know there's vegetation on the right, but do we know how far north it extended or how tall it was? And whether that provided any obscuring of it at all at the time?
He will say it did not, Your Honor. And the other one shows.
Mr. Cowden will say that.
Correct. He was able to see it again, as you know, as you can imagine, with a civilian witness, he's not exactly sure at what points he was, but as he's driving out.
Well, sure, also, this is a total surprise to him. He's just driving down the street. He's got no expectation of seeing anything
Exactly.
other than traffic.
Exactly. He sees this happening, and that's when he pulls out his phone and starts videoing. And his testimony will be that he was able to see it kind of as he came up to the intersection. Because again, that's what 527 is about, is that he can see straight forward up the intersection to the location where this occurred, even as much as 150 feet back.
I'm just not sure this whole exercise is particularly helpful.
Well, again, I think it's illustrative and it's helpful to help the jury understand what his view would have been having not
Is there-
been out there.
The lights of the squad car were on? The swag lights?
I can't remember if I'd have to check his notes as to whether or not he saw those come on or whether they were on.
Yeah, because they're in the video, right?
They are.
And he could have seen the light before he actually saw the car, or at least the glow of lights, and concluded maybe from flashing of them and the color of them, that there was likely a police vehicle right there even before he got to the intersection. I don't know. This all seems like a tempest in a teapot. I'm not sure this matters a whole lot. All right, well, we're afternoon. We'll talk about it some more, I guess, when we get back. We'll take our lunch break.